Today we're in day 18, and we're going to talk about the Sermon on the Mount that starts in Matthew chapter 5. Now, this goes from chapter 5 to chapter 6 to chapter 7. And it was a sermon that Jesus taught one day on the mountainside. That's what we call it, the Sermon on the Mount. It says that his disciples gathered around him and he began to teach them. Now, remember, this was a major point of Jesus's ministry, was to try to help the people, regular people, really understand what God was about, because the Pharisees were doing a pretty terrible job at it. And Jesus said this: "Don't misunderstand why I have come. I didn't come to abolish the law of Moses or the writings of the prophets." He said, "No, I came to accomplish their purpose, or to fulfill them." And here's what I want you to understand. Jesus is not against the law. You know, it's easy to get the idea when you go to church or when you read the Bible that the Old Testament is different from the New Testament, and the Old Testament was all about law and not important for us as Christians today, or unimportant to Jesus, as if Jesus just came to get rid of it. Jesus didn't come to get rid of the law. He came to fulfill the law. Jesus isn't against the law. God's the one who gave it to the people in the first place. So in the sermon, Jesus says stuff like this: "You have heard that our ancestors were told, you must not murder, and if you commit murder, then you'll be judged." But then he says this: "But I say this new thing. If you're angry with someone, then you'll be judged." And so I want you to pay attention to this pattern as you read through this Sermon on the Mount. He's talking about the old way from the Old Testament. And then after that, he says what his new way is. He's trying to help them to understand the new way of thinking about this. So again, he says, "You've heard the commandment that says you must not commit adultery," right? Old way. But then he says this: "But I say this." And look at what he says: "Anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." So once again, old way and new way. Here's the point. The new way goes deeper than the old way. It doesn't abolish it. It doesn't disqualify it. It doesn't throw it away. It just goes deeper than the old way. I mean, after all, Jesus is the one who gave the word, the law, the rules to Moses and to the Israelites. God gave those things, but they misunderstood the heart of it. And so the new way, Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount, goes more to the heart. It drills down to the real meaning behind the law, because it had just become ritual for the people. And so at the end of this chapter, he says this: "You are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." So Jesus was trying to get his hearers, and that includes us today, to go deeper, to really understand the heart of the law. And when you really understand the heart of the law, you'll understand that you can't keep it on your own power or by your own righteousness. And that's why we need Jesus.